I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah Catherine.
And this is Conservation Connection,
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We are a husband and wife team running a wildlife education nonprofit. It's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that, introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management, and we ask them about their career,
their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with EarthX here in Dallas, Texas.
EarthX is the largest Earth Day celebration in the world, and it brings in speakers from every corner of the environmental arena.
Listen in to hear the stories of today's environmental titans, covering everything from environmental law, ocean health, renewable energy, clean transportation, and so much more.
Let's get to the show.
Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. We are here in Dallas for EarthX 2022. We're very excited to be sitting across from Patricio Robles Gil, who is an artist who has cared about the environment his whole life.
Welcome to the show.
I'm honored. Thank you.
So, Patricio, why are you here at EarthX?
Someone did a meeting with Trammell Crow. He was flying to Mexico City. And I said, okay, come, I invite you to my home because you can see what I'm doing right now. That's the art pieces, kind of a protest, environmental protest of what's happening. So Trammell went there. We talk, we connect. Actually, we talk about Vance Martin from the Wild Foundation. And then he invited me to be in the board of the Latin America EarthX that he was trying to pursue that new branch of EarthX, and the pandemic came. And for a while, we were not connected, but he invited me to go to Alaska, and we connect much more there. We discuss, and I have been advising about who he should invite to the board, and I'm here because I knew that Vance Martin was coming, and he wanted me to do a presentation with him about forest in Latin America, and I've been learning, making connections.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to Vance Martin's first episode, you should absolutely do that.
Yes, his first episode, and we were lucky enough to interview him here once again at EarthX this year. So if you don't mind, could you give us a bit of your background in this environmental field? As you've told us before recording, you've been working in this field for a long time, and you've recently kind of steered away from it and focused more on your art. But can you tell us a little bit of your background?
Well, have lived all my life in Mexico City, so you can imagine if you kind of like nature, you're in the wrong place. But the thing is, my father was a doctor and he was a hunter. And my older brother, and I kind of did the ritual about hunting. It's a whole thing. And you become a person, a man or someone when you go through these rituals of hunting. I travel to different places in the world as a hunter. And then you start looking how privileged you are of seeing these wild places and these wonderful animals. And then this was the 70s. And then you start hearing about ecology, you start hearing about ecosystems, about corridors. And then, well, I need to commit. I cannot go there and see all this wildlife. I quit hunting with firearm, and I start hunting with a camera. I'm more like an artist, so I use the camera as a tool. I don't have the mind of a scientist, so that was the only possibility in Mexico to have a relation with nature, to be a biologist. I'm an artist. So I said in the early 1990s, I decided to found an organization called Sierra Madre in Mexico. And instead of receiving money from foundations or donors, that we don't have many in Mexico, I create this idea of convincing the marketing areas of the corporation to get involved in the awareness of the environment through different ways. And it worked. So I was starting to sell calendars, and we did stores and other things, and that way was the way we were getting money. And years later, I created another organization called Unidos para la Conservación, United for Conservation, still alive. And that organization was working in the field. The other one was working in the cities, convincing corporations to commit.
So what kind of art do you do?
Before I commit to conservation, I was an artist that was doing paintings and drawing the indigenous people from Mexico, the ethnic groups. I did it for 15 years, and I was quite successful. I was having solo shows in different galleries, and it was good time. I didn't have problems. I was making money, but it was not enough. I knew that I have to do something different and better. So in early 1990s, I created these two organizations. And by the time we held hands with the Wild Foundation, with the Congress in Mexico, I was kind of worn out. I did have a really bad accident in China. A horse dragged me by my foot. It was caught in the stirrup. Down the mountain, my pelvis broke, and I was really depressed. I was not good, not only because of the pain I had for 8 years, but also I realized that I realized a little bit late that we were losing too many battles, environmental battles, that we fail, almost all the organizations, to save species and to protect environments. So I took my time to step away from everything, and I refuged myself in the art. And the art I started to do was in the Congress of Wild 9 in Merida. I did a exercise of body painting.
Oh, wow.
So we have 30 of the best nature photographers worldwide. I don't think ever have been that gathering of the best of National Geographic, and many others were there. I invited to some friends, artists, men and women, and we have 17 men and women bodies that they strip in an old hacienda in the Yucatan. Early morning, they start painting the bodies with the theme of nature. And then about noon or 2 o'clock, the photographers came to document ephemeral art form. So we make some prints, and then the people who were attending the Congress came at night. And it was this hacienda completely in the dark. And we did some speeches, and suddenly we turned on the lights, and in the corridors there were these human sculptures, and everybody were speechless for 30 minutes. And I said, oh, this is so powerful. I have never seen it. I have done many exhibits, photographic exhibits, whatever, and this was very powerful. What was interesting was that next morning, the director of the BBC Wildlife Photographer of the Year, that is the most famous photo contest in the world, grabbed me by the arm and said, Patricio, tell me that what we witnessed, what we saw yesterday was not a dream. So this is important. And then through the years, I met some colleagues, photographers, really famous, and they were bragging that they were in that meeting, and there were other people. Says that moment was really special. So for several years, I do some body painting in the way that I was kind of bringing to life really famous artists from cave paintings to actual painters still alive, and using his techniques or using his images that have done, and was recreating environmental problems. Later, I started making sculptures, photography, and I just keep it for myself. It was not for the purpose that this will change anything. I was healing, and that is the power that has the art. It can heal you, and it did. As I mentioned, I was 8 years in pain.
Yeah.
And then I was frustrated because I saw we are not going to win these battles.
Do you have any specific imagery from that night that you could describe for us, like a snapshot that is stuck in your brain that you remember?
There were so many. Just looking at the artist working, they have never done body painting. Some were abstract. Just think, if you have a canvas, it doesn't move, it doesn't stretch, and just the idea that the body moves and the skin moves also. You can paint a jaguar in the chest of a girl, and if she moves, it can be sad, or it can be with the eyes that he's kind of scared, whatever. And seeing the people, as I mentioned, speechless for 30 minutes, and then the models, they were so happy, and so it was a festivity for nature. And the people who participated, the artists, some of them, it was the best day of their lives.
That's awesome. I think that's a really interesting. We don't get to talk about art much on this podcast, and I'm very excited about it. So please indulge me. I think that is such an interesting way to talk about the natural world, because we're used to art, like you said, on canvases, static, not moving, not changing. And that's, I think, oftentimes how we think about the natural world, and it's not. And so to do art in this dynamic way, that is, it moves, it changes, and it redefines the way that we think about it. By doing this painting on a body, it sort of mirrors the ways in which we should be thinking about the environment as this ever-changing, ever-growing, ever-responding thing, in sort of the same way as a body as a canvas.
Well, think that the early form of art was in the caves and also in the body. Humans were painting themselves for many, many different rituals, to going to war, for weddings, for rebirth, so many. So we are used to. Many of the girls I have painted, they don't want to go to the shower and take away. They feel they are representing. They become the animal you are creating, and they stay for days like that. They actually. I'm really surprised. I never thought it would happen, but and once that you are painted, the nude disappears completely.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. And another thing I find about art that is important, artists has always been in the front lines of almost everything. War, things that happen to humankind, artists has been there, and they are the ones that step the first step, and that's the way it start the change.
Yeah. And they record it in a way that just words alone doesn't. They record the emotion of what has happened. They record how people feel about it, and they can convey it without the need for lengthy explanations, right? So you're not only recording the facts of what happened, but the emotional weight of what was occurring in wars and in other events. And that's a really important thing in the environmental sphere, as well as recording not just the facts, what species have been lost, but how we should feel about that and how people are responding to that.
What are the challenges I have when I'm making a work? Different people have said that my work, the art I produce, is provocative, but at the same time is very seductive. And I use skulls of animals. I use death. I use lots of things that people don't want to see. But the challenge I put in producing this work is that it is not easy to watch it. I will describe now a piece I did. It's not easy to see it, but in art, the aesthetical is a word. The aesthetical is very provocative and also nice. They like it. I took the figure of Christ that I inherited from my father and mother that was made of ivory. You know the story about how elephants have been
hunted for their tusks.
The population have been gone so down because of the ivory itself, and they produce lots of things. But one of them is this religious symbol that is Christ. I sneaked it in my equipment, and I went to the zoological park because they have these skulls of elephants and other animals, and they will let me photograph them. So I put the elephant skull in a wall. I put the camera, the tripod, the lights, and I saw that no one was there. And I put it just where the nose of the elephant stick. It's kind of a hollow space. Mm-hmm. And it just landed perfectly. The size, everything. Immediately, all the symbolism, all the power of Christ, and at the same time, all the power of the form of animals in the skull of an elephant. I love skulls. You understand the evolution there. When you put them together, it was so powerful that I was afraid to take the picture.
Wow.
It was really, really unique.
That's awesome. I'm going to try and find a link to that image if I can find it online so that if you're listening to this podcast, you can click on the link. I may not be able to, so I might be editing this out later.
I don't know if you can find it. Maybe you can find it. I did an exhibit in a gallery called Patricia Conde. You will find some images of my work there. But there's a link to a website, my website, that you have several videos of my work. And it's called the Extinction Rituals. That's what all this work, I baptized it as the Extinction Rituals. And rituals are exactly how we create them is with the purpose of healing. Rituals are created because we will confront issues that we are not prepared to confront. Issues that they need to tell us what to do. And so they help us in that process, but also they help us healing with the losses. If you don't do the ritual when someone dies, if you don't see him, if you don't touch him, if you don't spend some time in mourning, you will never understand that he already is gone. You think he's still there somewhere.
Right. Helps you process.
So this is the Extinction. The site is www.theextinctionrituals.com.
So definitely, I can promise you that we have that link in the show notes. So scrolling down, you can click on that and check out some of Patricio's amazing work.
Yeah. Now, looking into the future, I know you said you started working with sculptures and different forms of media. Now, do you have plans for what you want to continue to work on, or?
Yes, my ideas I have in my mind to produce different works of art are from now until I die. But one of the things I'm kind of someone is seducing inside my head to go back to conservation, and I'm excited about. I have a friend, for instance, that is has been working for 20 years to bring back the California condor into the mountains of northern Baja. And I'm going to help him to making books, taking photos, and making some artwork maybe to raise money to support him. I also would like to get involved with not young in general, but with certain individuals that are passionate, that have commitment, that are hard workers. Those guys are the ones that make the difference. One of those guys did make the difference to me, because in Mexico, I would not find people with the knowledge, the commitment, the passion. So when this guy appeared in my life, they changed my life completely, because any idea that crosses my mind, we could make it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today and sitting down with us. And I look forward to looking more into your work and seeing what you continue to produce in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you want to talk about the work I'm doing, because I think it really shakes the minds of the people, because they don't think art is a tool that we can use and actually be very, very powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to reach out, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact, and shoot us an email.
We love questions from our listeners, so if you heard something that you want to know more about, be sure to let us know.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts will help other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to the people working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week.